Hello, this is Dale Matthews. It's Inside News. I'm joined by Mike Jones, and this time the news is about us. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, we're the focal point. Yay.
Well, our videos are, because we turn the cameras around and we point them back at you and what's happening in the county, what's happening with the county commissioners, what's happening with the city, Grants Pass City Council. And we've got 12 award winners. Yes, it was just recently announced for 2015. It takes them a little while. And we're the winners in our category as people who report and watch about government. And ours is concentrated on local government. Now, we've said right from the
Is
very
there
beginning.
anybody else in that category?
Yeah, there were plenty of.
There was.
Yeah, we were in a competition, general journalism competition, with all the big newspapers and television stations on the entire West Coast, except for California. So it was the entire West Coast, and including Idaho, I think, which isn't exactly the coast, but the West.
Did you get an opportunity at all to look at any of the competition for this?
Actually,
that we're pitted against?
I looked at the titles, but I didn't look at the videos because it didn't. The notice that I got.
We're number one.
We are number one, as a matter of fact. Now, when you look at, the Daily Courier, they post videos. The TV stations here post videos. Our category was videos online. Well, where else are you going to watch videos? I guess you could watch them on the nightly news, but that's television. And we purport to be an online television station. We're on every night of the year. And today is day number 542 in a row.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. And so now what I did was, you're getting a ding there. Wish I were to get it.
That was the marker. It's 540 something in a row. Ding. See,
I see
how that works.
Well, one of the best things about working with Mike is that we sometimes approach subjects from slightly different points of view, and that slight difference is one of the things that makes the show interesting. Plus, neither one of us has got this inflated opinion of himself, and so we're willing to poke fun at ourselves and at each other and everybody else, and it kind of makes it a little simpler to do a show like this. I also started goodcounty.com, which is nowhere near as popular as badcounty.com, go figure. And following is the kind of story that would end up on goodcounty.com. So what we're going to do is we're going to play back these 6 of our 12 award-winning videos. Tomorrow night will be the second group of 6, and we will do little comments about them. Speaking of little comments, here's some little guys that I think it's very sweet, and it's a pleasure to do this kind of reporting. Here we go.
Okay, we have been practicing a couple of songs. Our first song is Summertime. We have wanted to come and say thank you to the county commissioners for serving, and this was our way of showing that thanks. So we're going to sing Summertime first. Summertime and the lady fish on the sand and holiday high this very day.
Oh.
What happened?
I don't know. Well, I don't want to miss anything. Here we go.
Our next song is God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her to the light with the light from above. On the mountain to the prairies, from the oceans, like a song. God America, my home, sweet home. And our last song is This Land is Your Land. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
I just think that's wonderful. Those were little from the looking at my notes here, the River Valley Daycare Center.
Right. You know what's funny? I mean, some of those guys were taking pride in being the loudest in their group.
And others were so fascinated with their flags that it was hard to remember the words.
Yes.
The people there at River Valley, they bring the kids by to serenade the county commissioners every year. And my very favorites are the ones that are loud and out of tune. It's kind of me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the kids troop on in and just do the best that they can to raise up our spirits. And they sure did it for me. But I would imagine the teachers were real glad that they only really need to sing one stanza. Let's just do that one. And
yes.
It was very sweet. And so I don't want to get too much in depth on that because it brings a tear to my eye. And it seemed to me that it would be appropriate for close to the 4th of July here.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's a pleasure to live in a place that makes this kind of thing possible, and unfortunately, it makes other kinds of things possible too. But we do what we can to raise your spirits, so that's why we do it now. So when Mike and I were when we did live election night coverage in November, we did it again in May, but the numbers of the people weren't anywhere near as big. You got to remember that. On the internet, as we've said a couple of times, the greatest numbers of people who flock to videos are ones who are there to see goofy stuff, real goofy. Though all you need to do is watch the nightly news and you can see plenty of goofy. But the greatest numbers of all go to sex-oriented videos. You may not like that, but that's the case. And there are those of you who do. Woohoo! And then the second greatest number of videos go to funny animals, especially cats. So none of our videos involve sex and cats, although we've often threatened to try to do some kind of video about that. Just can't seem to get any of those cats to participate. So it's kind of amazing in a relatively small community such as ours that a video site about local politics, which is the lowest rated of all time in all the internet, does fairly well. And how many viewers did we get that first night on our election night coverage, Mike?
Somewhere in the 400 range, something like that. And we were ecstatic at the time. We thought, wow, that's fantastic. That was the first coverage that we did, which was of the levy. The second one that we did in November, that was the big ticket thing. There was the sales tax, and that's kind of what the big draw was, I believe.
And do you remember how many video views we got for that one?
Yeah, it was 2,800 something. 28. You
got to say it like this: 2,888.
Yes.
Don't say 2,800. It makes it sound small. 2,888, and most of those were on the very first night. And I kind of figured a lot of people might tune in because we had the news before anybody else.
Right.
And maybe they'd really want to know how the sales tax went. But to me, the interesting thing was looking at the statistics that come through. People watched it all the way through, and it was well over an hour. They watched the whole thing. Really?
Yeah, and I think we had some pretty decent guests on that night. We had Rob Pell on there, I know, and Vivian stopped in. A couple other people stopped in, and it was, it had good content all the way through it. That would be interesting to people in Grants Pass as well as the rest of the county. So.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of criticism just from highly partisan people when I asked a question of the head of the Republican Party. I said, that there is, I'm paraphrased, there is some kind of tension within the party. Tension within the party? Oh no, there's tension within the Republican Party here in Josephine County about, who's really Republican and what are they doing and the stands that they take. I'm specifically talking about people who call themselves Republicans, but they're really tax and spend proponents of things like sales tax and property tax.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, this is such a bizarre thing. And listen, I don't really have any other locality to compare it to because for the most part, up until I moved to this area, didn't really pay any attention to local politics at all. It was all, state and national stuff that I cared about. And so, I don't know if these guys are dissimilar from other places or not. I hope they are, because I'd hate to think that it was this confusing everywhere because, party label almost doesn't really mean anything. In fact, I don't know any, out of the closet Democrats that are in office here locally. Do you? No, I don't. And the governor's race was nonpartisan, officially nonpartisan. Now, I think that we all know that Cheryl Walker is a Democrat, and a lot of supporters who come to the weekly business session and speak are part of the Democrat. I can't exactly call them a juggernaut. The Democrat party apparatus. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, right. And she has, on a number of occasions, pushed issues that I thought were certainly more in the Democrat camp than they were in the Republican camp. But you know what, though? Most of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, most of that stuff, on the social, aspects of your political affiliation, it really almost doesn't have a whole lot of application here. It's the economic stuff that is really where the rubber meets the road here. And, and that is connected to taxes. It's connected to, policy as to, county and city employees. And, what they get paid and what they do and how many of them there are. And,
well, before I always thought that the big difference between the two was that Democrats had more of a tendency to believe that government could solve all your problems. And Republicans were generally the ones that said, no, I'd prefer to have less government.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? That's a real good nutshell definition of what, they have traditionally meant. Up till, I mean, even now,
believe it.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of even losing its definition nationwide, though, too. These lines are blurring. Right now, Republicans. And if you're a Republican or a conservative, you've been hoping that you get these guys in there so that we get policy out of them. But they say, they control the House and then they go, well, wait till we get the Senate. And you give them the Senate and they still don't do anything. And or they seem to be acquiescing to the policies of the other side. And so it's the lines are blurring here. I expect, though, when you consider what's going on in this country, and here recently we've had had a look at what's happening internationally even. And there's a different tide, you know. I mean, it's my friend Tom, who I walk with every morning, he's so fond of saying that the pendulum swings back and forth. And I'm, you know, kept saying, yeah, you know, theoretically, I guess it would, but I haven't seen the pendulum back this way in quite a long time. And this may be it. This may be the pendulum swinging back, and it may come, you know, as a surprise to everybody.
Well, one of the other things that's happened in our area is that there are a lot of people who really, really want a property tax, not just on themselves. That's not the question. They want a property tax on you. They don't want, if they just wanted to spend the money themselves, they could put in the money, twice as much money. I'd be willing to spend twice as much money. Then go ahead and do so. But they really want you to dip into your pocket to pay for the things that they think are absolutely essential. And they're pretty much willing to say, and we've shown you so much tape on this, come on, you guys, that, you know, they're willing to say just about anything to get there. So I was really surprised. It was a couple of years ago when I was in Cave Junction, and it was election time again. And this is before I was working with Mike. And I asked a question at one of the gatherings. I said, can you really tell us, because the head of the Republican Party was there and the head of the Democrat Party was there. And I said, here in Josephine County, we already know, or we think that we know, what the difference between Democrats and Republicans is on a national basis. In a couple of years, it's become more blurred, as Mike says. But what is the difference locally between a Democrat and a Republican here in Josephine County? And they agreed, and you've probably seen this tape, they agreed, well, there really isn't a difference. There really isn't a difference?
Wow. Yeah, it's, that's kind of interesting. You would think that, well, you know, we're kind of in a unique situation here because we're not solely, or we haven't been solely supported by property tax as they are in many other parts of the country. Like where I came from, Napa County, it was a big, you know, rich winery, vineyard area. But all of the land in the county is owned privately. You know, I mean, there actually is a small section of federal land. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and but the majority of the county is owned by people, and the assessments are high. So they've got plenty of money coming in. And so they don't deal with the type of problems that we have, where we have little teeny areas within a huge county full of federal land, and the little teeny bit of it is taxed, but we're spread out. You know, I mean, these are thin strips that are long, you know, between Grants Pass and Cave Junction. There's not a whole lot on either side of the highway that is privately owned land. In between here in Cave Junction, there's some, you know, people who live in Selma and Kirby and whatever are saying, I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm talking about, I mean, if you looked at it on a map, probably most of what is on either side of that highway, you know, is federal land somehow, or federally controlled land. Anyway, so this is a unique thing here, because if all of our geography was on a postage stamp, you know, in a very small area, the tax base that we have would be fine. There wouldn't be an issue because the guys wouldn't have to go very far. But they burn up a lot of gasoline and time in between here and Cave Junction. So, you know.
Well, one of the things that we've tried to do in our coverage is to explain to you what's going on with a little bit of humor, a little bit of self-deprecating humor. And it's, to me, it's the only way. It's kind of lonely being the only person from the public at most of these meetings. And they treat me very badly. Call me names, make fun of me, try to sick the bad guys on me. And so coming here to show you the videos and to talk with Mike is the best part of all of this. And what we try to do is maintain a little sense of humor. And you get a chance to see that every once in a while. For quite a while, just approaching the podium, people thought, well, this guy's really a strident ideologue. I think that you'll see that that's not really who I am. But here's Mike and I doing a special promotional video just for the night that we did the election coverage.
Oops. Okay, we're rolling.
So, hello and welcome to the show. I'm Dale and this is Mike, and we're going to start now. We're not going to start now. This is not the show.
Right.
No, we're recording this ahead of time.
Right.
So that you'll know what the heck's going on, because if you come here at 7 o'clock and you've clicked on the show, you're going to notice that, well, we're not really on. It seems like we are, but we're not.
Yeah, but you'll be watching this, so it'll seem like we're on when really
we're not. We're not on.
Yes.
We're not on.
This is a recorded message.
It's
Yes,
recorded.
But we
message.
will be on at 8 o'clock tonight.
We're going to be on at 8 o'clock. Now, why will we be on at 8 o'clock, Mike?
Because tonight's election night. Yes.
That's true. And so I'm going to be across the street. We're here across the street from the courthouse, and I'll be over there listening to a famous liar and cheater. No, that's not nice. I'll be listening to Art Harvey. And Art's going to tell us what he purports to be the vote.
Right. And so what we're going to learn tonight, basically, is who got elected to the school board.
I think there's something else on the ballot that we're all interested
there
in.
might be something
in which
else.
we're all interested. Sorry,
Yes.
English
And you'll
teachers.
hear it here first, by the way.
Yes.
We should have it before anybody else.
Before anybody else. Now, you can wait for the 11 o'clock news, but you don't have to. You can come back here at 8 o'clock and then click.
Yes.
Yeah, click on it.
So just to be concise,
Too late.
Come to Batt County. Yes, it is too late for that, isn't it? Come to battcounty.com and just click on the Live at 8 button.
It's a big honking picture. It's really big.
You can't miss it. And then, or if you're seeing this in a chat room somewhere, just click on this and you'll be watching it live at 8 o'clock.
All the cool kids are going to be here.
Yes.
It's one of my very favorite videos of all time.
Yeah, I know. It is really good because, it was completely spontaneous. It sort of had a kind of almost a Smothers Brothers type of
We didn't rehearse any of this. That time when we were both saying the same words, it was completely spontaneous. Like spontaneous combustion.
Yeah,
if the camera falls over, it's going to burst into flames.
Right. Same thing.
We follow local politics, and it's so serious most of the time that it's nice to be able to maintain a little sanity, if that's what you want to call that, by just having a little bit of fun with it. Otherwise, you just want to cry. And our colleagues outside of this area, because they hate us here, the local media hate us. They've made that very clear, drippingly clear, that they hate us because we're out of control. We're not under control media, whatever that means. And so our colleagues and the rest of the West just think this is a wonderful video and appreciate what it is that we do. Well, here's another one that they picked that they thought, wow, it's unbelievable. We think it's unbelievable too. It's amazing to me that this kind of thing could be said at a meeting twice, and that there's many explanations for this. This just made people's jaws drop when they heard this. It's also another award-winning video from Mike and me.
So I just wanted to start off with some good news. The department, we're a sub-awardee with Healthcare Coalition of Southern Oregon for a 5-year federal grant known as Healthy Start. Based on our performance on this grant in its first year and the funding formula change, the amount of our award for both Josephine County Public Health and Josephine Community Health Center is going to increase this year from $71,000, which is what we got in year one, to $149,600. for the continuation of that work.
Wonderful.
Jefferson County is carrying this federal grant. Jackson County has basically backed out of it. The reason we were able to, HCSO was able to qualify to apply for the grant was because of our zip codes, the the high infant mortality rate in certain zip codes. And they've expanded those zip codes to include every zip code in our county now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good news for us.
Yeah, it's good news, but it's horrible.
Yeah.
Sad. At least we're getting money to work on it.
Yeah. Right. So that'll allow me to increase my FTEs for folks and,
See, where we live, there to be part of the course. People in other parts of the country are saying, "What did she just say?"
I wondered what would have taken place had Keith Heck not mentioned that. Yeah, that's a horrible statistic. I mean, that was something that was clear to him almost immediately, but didn't seem to. I mean, wouldn't you preface that if you're her? Wouldn't you preface that by saying, we got some bad news, but it means that we're going to be getting some more money to combat that or something? That would seem like the better way of couching it. Although she says what she says, and then at the end, so I'll be able to increase my number of FTEs, full-time employees, which means my kingdom is larger. Again, why wouldn't you say, well, because we're going to have another full-time employee, we'll be able to put that person into this, which should net us a reduction in that number, which of course is a bad measurement, not a good one. Just really weird, and perhaps insight. I hope it's not insight into what all government thinks of when they are thinking of money for their department, but it may well be.
Well, it's like one of those things when you're at a funeral and somebody has died and people are saying nice things about the person, and the person next to you leans over to you and says, good riddance.
Yeah, well, guy was a jerk.
It's
at least wait till you get outside.
Yeah, it's little things that, because Mike's explanation of what she could have said is exactly what Cheryl Walker said afterwards. Well, what she really meant was this. Oh no, we're all very sympathetic, but did it look to you? See, when I turned this into the awards team that looks at this, there was no explanation of it. All they saw was what was on the tape. I think that's all that you need. It's a little insight, it's more transparency than they thought that they would have in this administration. This is what they think, or at least that's what they thought during those few minutes, until they got some roaring feedback from people after watching this video. And they said, what are you thinking? Well, that's distorted. That's not what we said. That's been happening.
This is an unfortunate thing, and it sort of reminds me, kind of goes in the same category. I was talking to my friend this morning about, the VA situation and how, why is it that we can't take care of these veterans? They did their part of the thing, and we have this Veterans Administration, which ostensibly is supposed to care for them. So why is it that, they're not being cared for? You could essentially eliminate the entire bureaucracy, hand these people a card that pays for all of their needs, and they would be way ahead, because the bureaucracy, this entity that they have set up, sucks up most of the money. And they're worried about saving money throughout the year so that they can pay themselves bonuses at the end of the year for having done such a crappy job. And so you wonder, is that just, something that's endemic in government? I just don't know. That's weird.
It's nice to get some perspective that's outside of our bowl. some people call it a bubble. We live in a bowl here, outside of our local bowl, where it's viewed by real journalists, not people, where the city government says, well, we'll turn this over to the Courier and they'll explain the need. Really? And we've heard this from the county commissioners as well. This is where we live. These are the local media people. And, well, we're just that's a pretty interesting story, but we're not going to cover that, says the TV station. So, we're out there and we're actually watching this stuff, and we think that we're giving you some kind of insight into what their real thoughts are. And people on the outside are going, holy shoot, that's amazing. And that's why we won first place for that one as well. So not just the funny one with the little kids, and I think the hilarious one with Mike and I making fun of each other and the show, but also this pretty difficult subject, and not just Keith X as well. It's gotcha video. It's not like we laid a trap for him. I wasn't expecting she'd come in and say good news twice, that it's good news. Mm-hmm. What an odd way to portray this. Well, it does mean money.
Yeah, and as to other media not covering it, that's bothersome to me. I don't quite understand. I think that, as close as I can figure, they're worried about losing access. Either that, or they're just so ideologically in line with these people that they're going to parrot them every time. But that couldn't possibly be the case, because not entirely, because we've had different types of commissioners over the history of Josephine County. Surely this hasn't been going on forever. It just makes you wonder if they all of a sudden at one point decided that never ever to counter City Hall, or does this depend on the people who are sitting in the commissioner's office? That's an interesting question.
But do you remember Eder Campuzano that was here for a little while and was doing some actual reports about what was happening inside the commissioner's office? That guy didn't last very long. No, he went up to Portland.
Yeah. I wonder the circumstances, if they gave him some incentive to hit the road, or whether he got a better job or what.
Just how many times can you come to somebody because I talked to him as often as I could, and how many times can he go to them with a story saying, here's something that's pretty interesting, and have them say, he didn't do any inside talking, so very little. But how many times can he go to them with the story and have them deny that it's a story at all? I recently sent a letter to the editor, I've mentioned on the show, where I was trying to point out that what the treasurer had said about laundering drug money. Mm-hmm. There's no two ways about this. It's not my interpretation. It's what was said. And they wouldn't even accept it as a letter to the editor. They're not going to cover that story.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd how often they choose not to cover stuff that you thought, there's no way this isn't making the news. It sometimes will make the news because for some odd reason, there's, a Channel 5 happens to be at the weekly business session, and that makes the news through them, but the Courier doesn't even cover it. And there have been there was one, the knockdown drag out fight between Cheryl Walker and Simon Hare. That I don't believe was ever reported in the Courier at all.
And it went on for weeks.
45 minutes. It went, that one day, the big day.
45 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
We found and Kirkpatrick Pilger said, that's enough. And Cheryl Walker, you don't need to speak. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It was, and the $100,000 cost overrun. Where in what city in America would $100,000 cost overrun because they miscounted the number of floors? They said there were 3 and there were actually 4. At what city in America would this not be, at least, on the lighter side of the news? They can't count, and so it's going to cost $100,000.
Well, you would think at the very least, they would look into that and wonder, well, there was a cost overrun and the commissioners claim it was something different. I just think they chose not to cover it at all.
That's what they did. So what we tried to do, what I was happy about, is when we got a new elected legal counsel, because it was 20 years with the same legal counsel. No one ever ran against him. The very first time someone ran against Steve Rich, the guy won, and that's Wally Hicks. And Wally Hicks comes from a background in state politics, a bit of a wheel in the Republican Party, which is fine. And when he came, I talked to him a lot before he ran, before he announced, and after he announced, and trying to fill him in about what was going on around here, give him documents, show him videos, just kind of have long talks with him. And I had a feeling, well, I knew for sure that here was a guy, because he's the only elected legal counsel in the whole state, that he would clean this up, because Steve Rich was saying stuff to the commissioners like ignorance is bliss, when they're supposed to keep track of whether a place is safe or not and whether they give it the safety rating. And Steve Rich was saying, if you don't know whether it's safe or not, that's a better thing to be, because then you can't be blamed if you don't know. Hey.
Yeah, I doubt very seriously that I would get away with that if I had some job site up and running and one of my guys did something that ultimately caused somebody else to get injured or something like that. I'm willing to bet that I would probably be held responsible for that. And I guess the point that he was trying to make is that if a commissioner doesn't know some particular thing is going on, if somebody else calls them on it, well, they can't be held liable because the commissioner didn't know it. That's kind of weird.
Well, this is the same guy that advised them not to audio record any of the executive sessions. Remember that the commissioners got in trouble for executive sessions, right? Because if they record them, if there's ever a challenge from anybody, then that evidence can be used against them.
Can be subpoenaed.
Well, that reminds me of the hospitals that say, we won't allow you to videotape the birth. Remember, there was a movement for a while to videotape
sure.
And the hospitals were saying, a number of them, hey, we're not going to allow you to do that. Well, why wouldn't you allow us to do that? Because there were lawsuits that happened because they had proof that the doctor had really screwed up. I mean, a chisel and a hammer is not the best tool to use. And they were capturing this on videotape. And that's why. So my opinion is, any hospital that says that you can't videotape it, don't go there.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So anyway, at the very beginning, our relationship with Wally Hicks was terrific. The guy was funny. We were funny. Just check out the way that we acted and talking with Wally Hicks, and what a great time that we're having. That's all over now. That's sad.
What happens if a county charter disagrees with the city charter?
Oh my goodness. I would go in purely through the mode of speculation on that point. I don't know. There may be a case out there. There probably is.
Yeah.
But I do not know. It's an interesting question.
That's what we do on this show, is we ask interesting questions.
You would. You really have to. And it's kind of like, it would be kind of neat if someone would bring it to a judge someday. I mean, you'd have to have a conflict, unfortunately, a justificable controversy. But
we'll make one up, right, Mike?
No, please don't. But it would get a judge. I think, pondering this difference within the state constitution of how it talks about home rule provisions for cities and home rule provisions for counties.
Well, on that case, then, okay, so you got the city potentially in conflict with the county, potentially in conflict with the state, and then you've got federal laws that are in conflict with what's happening in July and legalizing marijuana.
Yes, the federal law has not changed. No.
And then you got the UN Charter, and then there's that little known thing about the universe and its laws.
Yes. So if we as a state are going to disregard the federal law, then as a precedent, why can't we then just disregard state statutes that are bucking our charter here?
That question was asked in the last cave, basically that question was asked in the last Cave Junction case that Judge Wilkie cited in this building 6 or 8 months ago. And I think that question, and he didn't rule on that particular point. He ruled separately. He ruled on the home rule provisions, actually.
Yeah.
But I think that is pending even now in a separate case in front of Judge Holt. And so we might find out an answer to that question before too much longer. Yeah, it's interesting to think of. Now, marijuana, recreational marijuana and medical marijuana are treated slightly differently, even at the federal level. This is kind of not well known, I suppose, but there was a case about 10 years ago, Gonzalez versus Reich, that said, I'm overly simplifying it here, but it said in essence that a state's, we're talking just medical marijuana here, that a state's involvement within marijuana enforcement will basically drive the federal government's involvement. So the feds can enforce to the extent that the state enforces. That's what the court is generally looking for in regards to medical marijuana. We're not talking recreational, and that's where there's a difference. So if the state takes a real hands-off approach to medical marijuana, then I think a federal judge would expect the federal authorities to take a comparably hands-off approach to medical marijuana. Similarly, if the state does a real high level of enforcement, then the federal authorities would be allowed to do a high level of enforcement also.
Now, we all know that banks are
Doesn't apply
regulated.
recreational though. That's why there's a difference still, even at the federal level, between medical and recreational marijuana.
Banks are regulated by the U.S. government.
Yeah, well, yeah, the state. Yeah.
So, if we have a law that allows marijuana growth and industry and use, the feds can still say, you can't take any money from that enterprise and put it in the bank.
Yeah, this is a problem that they're having in.
Probably.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's a problem having Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado. This is going on right now. Probably Washington too.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a very complex question. And, I wouldn't go apply for a job at OLCC right now, the Liquor Control Commission, because, someone could get clever and declare that they are aiding and abetting the commission of a federal felony.
By being on the OLCC?
Well, I mean, perhaps because, they're potentially abetting the commission of federal delivery.
They're the regulating authority on the marijuana issue within the state. Is that right?
Yes, they are now in regards to recreational. Yeah, the health authority regulates medical marijuana. So, but there was no option there. The electorate passed Measure 91. And it just said OLCC will be the regulatory authority. So I think that OLCC is not well suited at all to being a regulatory authority for marijuana. I mean, I realize you got alcohol and marijuana, but that's kind of where the similarities end. Nevertheless, that's what the law now requires. So that's what's going to happen.
Well, we're going to look forward to talking to you about more things having to do with the charter, and we'll give you the chance to look at these. And you're going to start off with the part about the city charter and a county charter, and what does it mean, and the general overview of why is there a charter, how did it get written, what does it really mean, and we're truly finding, I wasn't sure, Mike, honestly, but we're truly finding that this investigation into the charter is turning out to be a lot more lively than I thought it was going to be.
I think it's very interesting, and it has real implications to the lives of the people that live here
on a daily basis.
Oh yeah, right, exactly. It's very important, and I think people should be educated about it.
Yes, it's a real asset to this community.
Yeah.
Thank you for your helping make sure that people understand this.
Okay, you bet. Happy to.
Yeah, I kind of missed that,
Well,
it was
everybody
it was
should.
very entertaining.
When was the last time? Oh, why am I frozen? Just a second. I'll be back. Okay. When was the last time that you're watching something on TV or you're reading through something in the Courier and they take something which is kind of a dry subject for a number of people, the county charter, and make it somewhat interesting and a little tart and a little bit stuff you hadn't heard before and explaining to you why it's important. You don't see that kind of coverage anywhere.
Yeah. And well, and we have this unique home rule charter that's different from, although unfortunately it's only different and better if we know how to use it and actually exercise that muscle.
Right.
We basically decided in this county that that's a little bit too much trouble. And, the charter doesn't really mean what it says it means. And I mean, that was the part of this whole process that was frustrating to me, is that, I don't know, I've read it. This is not difficult or, extreme verbiage there. And it's not too hard to interpret. And yet, it basically doesn't mean what it says that it means.
Well, he started off by doing exactly what he said he was going to do when he got in office. And we did a several-week series every Sunday with the county legal counsel without taking up all of his time. And it was funny, and we joked around with him a bit, and we got down to serious subjects. And one of the reasons why the whole West Coast journalists decided that they thought this was one of the award winners, it was very interesting to them, even though they don't live in Southern Oregon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, listen, just the review of it here, I was kind of riveted there. I mean, it was, we were hashing over a lot of stuff that we're still talking. It was still very much in the news, especially marijuana as they work on the policies of how the county is going to deal and the state is going to deal with recreational marijuana here. It's just pretty fascinating stuff. Really.
These are all 2015 award winners, okay? Because that's how it works. You look back at the entire year, and isn't this really the kind of relationship that we should have with our local elected officials? Shouldn't it always be exactly like what you saw?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So what happened was that Wally kept answering our questions, and we were laughing and joking with the guy and getting down to the details. And we also went into the whole story about how the public wanted to have control over fees. They got it on the ballot, which is not easy. They, without any help from the county government, because they didn't want to help them, they passed the thing, which was not easy because the local government didn't want that. And then they assigned, because he told us the whole story, they assigned our previous legal counsel to go to court to fight against it. And he won by default because nobody showed up from the other side, I think because we didn't know it was happening. But
Right.
they knew what the people wanted. It was crystal clear what the people wanted, but we didn't get it because we were defeated by the county going to court against the county.
Mm.
Well, if Wally's going to talk to us that way, he's going to get some feedback from the commissioners and from the other members of the staff in the courthouse. And he was coming under increased pressure from them. Oh, what are you talking to these guys like that about? Well, you're laughing and joking with them and telling them the truth behind some of these things. That is not helpful.
Yeah.
It finally got down to the
suspect
point
that
where... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I just think that they didn't like the chummy relationship because we're sort of known for being critical of certain county policies, and so
But we weren't critical in this at all. Did you detect any criticism from us? No, absolutely not.
No.
Time we weren't. We just wanted, really, what happened? And these are people from the past, none of the current people. But what are the laws and what are our protections? Do we have any protections? It finally got down to the point where it was so bad that the seminal point where Wally just stopped talking to us was when we found that the commissioners were saying something in a meeting. You've heard this already. We played back the tape for you. Then the commissioners and Wally Hicks and the HR director all not only denied that it happened, they denied that we videotaped it. And I said, but we just played it last night. No, that's not on tape. It's not on tape. No, it's not. No, it's on tape. We played it back on our show. No, it's not. No, it's not. This is what county legal counsel came down to, that it didn't exist. That was the end for me. And I just don't see how new commissioners are going to make any difference in that. He just decided not only to drink the Kool-Aid, but to make the Kool-Aid. And that's it. I wouldn't trust him to give me advice to come in and out of the rain. That's my opinion. Well, okay. So yes, we can be a little tart at times. I don't like the idea of being a little tart, but okay. That's it's an adjective, not a pronoun, not a noun. Okay, so
I thought it was a pastry.
Yes. So there's only one video that I submitted for examination where I did talking on top of the video. And this is one of those where, okay, let's stop the tape and we're going to talk about it. So here is that video for just about 3.5 minutes. And you've seen this stuff before, but the judges had never seen this before. They just couldn't believe it. Here we go.
I just wanted to make one clarification comment. This levy has nothing to do with the Board of County Commissioners. I mean, well, you can chortle all you want, but I'd appreciate it if you would not do that if you want to remain here.
This is Dale Matthews. What did he just say? Keith Heck was making fun of a citizen who said there was proof that the commissioners were supporting the 2015 levy. When Keith Heck insisted that the levy has nothing to do with the board, several people chuckled to themselves. You couldn't even hear them. But it's now against the rules to silently laugh at a meeting. Simon Hare threatened me for simply grinning. Literally, even freedom of facial expression is no longer allowed by our local government at meetings. So Keith Heck says, not if you want to remain here. You just heard him. So how did it come to this? I can show you, but you're not going to like it. I'm going to play a video recording of the county administration meeting of August 7th, a few months ago. The commissioners were attending most of the levy 2015 meetings, sometimes constituting a quorum. Keith Heck came back after an SOS meeting with news about how he had assigned the county director of juvenile justice to gather information to turn over to the levy proponents to promote the possibility of a levy.
Liaison update. Jim Goodwin has been requested to develop a generalized budget of, with the answer to the question, what does it cost to operate the juvenile justice system, to see whether there might be an interest, a hypothetical figure, using a figure of $2 million. That's what it costs. And how much is needed to get there? Is there a possibility of it having a levy for that particular, that everybody understands, is designated for that, so that the juvenile justice at least can get up functioning or whatever. So he's already responded to some preliminary information on that.
So it's over. This levy was not initiated by a citizen-driven program of complete independence. It was initiated by the commissioners.
But it has nothing to do with the county commissioners as far as supporting it, seeing it passed, or whatever. The only thing we would have to do with it is if it did pass, we would have to receive that and to see it applied as far as the levy goes and the taxation aspect goes. But please don't misunderstand that the Board of Commissioners has nothing at all to do with this levy one way or the other.
One way or the other.
Well, that's why. Now, you already know these details. Okay, you know the end of the story. But that's why journalists from outside the area, investigative reporters from outside the area, people who watch government from outside of our area look at this and go, who are these people? And is this guy going to be reelected? That's a possibility that guy, that particular guy, might be reelected even after doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually kind of doubt it, but maybe not having to do anything with this, but more the tone that he, that he keeps while he's, or certainly while he was chair, and but just generally, guy has poor attitude.
They look at this and they go, "What's wrong with these people? How is this possible that this can happen?" It's a bit of vindication for us. I mean, you're watching a show, you already know this, right? But these are people from all over the western part of the United States. They're going, oh my gosh, this is one of the reasons we won first place for this, is because of the way that it was laid out. And this was a little unusual, as it's got me talking on top of it. But putting the videos side by side, that's what we do. We put them side by side and we said, this is what I say. This is, oh no, now this is what I say. Oh, but there's no relationship between the two. Of course there is. That's what we excel at, and that's why we get yelled at, called names. I do, and people just think that we're out of control because there's nobody that's doing that. That's why we won the award. Here you are. They don't know anything about the background about what's happening here, but you can glean quite a bit from this kind of attitude, and the idea behind this whole category of award is to see what the government is doing and report about it. It's a target-rich environment here. So, Mike, that's about all that we have time for this time. Those were 5 of the videos that we won for, and tomorrow night we'll have 6 more. And we'll do what we can to let you know how we're being judged from outside.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's kind of cool. Good night.
Yeah.